In this video, I'll be ranking Honkai style characters as a F2P player. I'll be ranking them based on their E0 gameplay and whether or not it is worth it to build them. Being F2P means your resources are limited and makes it even more important to level the right character. Let's start off the list with the character that everyone starts with at the start of the game. They have a lovely personality in the game, being our lovable trash head. However, in gameplay, the Destruction MC is not on par with other Destruction DPSs and is considered the weakest of all the 3 different paths of the MC. Honestly, no one uses them once they advance further into the game, which puts them in the F tier. Moving on to the second path that we unlock upon completing the Belobog Trailblaze quest, the Preservation Trailblazer. They are a good character to use at the start if you need a bit of sustain. However, among the Preservation characters, their shields, if you can even call them that, are easily destroyed. It is highly recommended that you get a better sustain unit for the endgame modes in Honkai style, and that is why I will put Preservation MC in the C tier. Lastly, the Harmony MC is a meta-defining unit currently, as break teams are pretty strong right now. Harmony MC is good in this niche, which is break teams. It can be used universally in the top teams right now, which are Firefly teams, paired with Ranmei, and Boot Hill teams. As of right now, I will put them in the A tier. I have always loved March 7's character in the game. She was the mascot of the game and is way less annoying than Paimon is in Genshin. However, Preservation March shielding could only be applied to one character, which was not optimal for teams, as it will require another healer to be added into the team for a longer form of content. She had her niche teams that would work, such as Clara teams, but overall, there were better shielders than her, which is why I'll put her at C tier. When it was announced that March would be having a new Han form, I was beyond ecstatic to see what her kit could do. Han March is a really useful support character that helps buff your DPS. She is pretty universal and excels in follow-up team. She is a good F2P character as her E6 can be easily obtained through the event. If you do not have Topaz or E6 moves, she acts as a pretty good substitute for free-to-play players, which is why I will put her in the A tier. Covering the last of the trio is Dan Heng. Dan Heng is a solid DPS for early game players, but falls off in the late game. He just does not do enough damage for the late game, and compared to other Han characters, he is less valuable, which is why I will put him at C tier. The cooler Dan Heng, also known as Imbibitor Lunae, is the better counterpart of Dan Heng and is still considered a good DPS to this day. He fulfills his role as DPS and is capable of carrying endgame contents with investment, which lands him in A tier. Asta is a solid Harmony support for a 4-star, as her ultimate boosts the whole team and she gives an attack buff. However, she is easily replaced once you pull for better Harmony units, which is why I will give her a B tier. I'm sorry to all the other fans here, but F tier. There are just way better DPSs that you can invest in as a F2P player, and Arlan just requires way too much investment to be at least decent. From being useless to being the queen of pure fiction, Herta is amazing in her niche, which is multi-targeted waves. Her never fails to crack me up either, and makes her so fun to use. You will eventually get her E6 as long as you play the game, which is why I will put her in A tier. Being adorable and endearing at the same time, Hook is a fire destruction DPS that is unfortunately overshadowed by her peers, which puts her in F tier, as there are just better units you can use as your DPS. Released as the first healer in the game, Natasha was used in the early versions of the game as she was the only good sustain we had at the time. She is sadly now considered the worst of the healers in the game, Lynx just being better in every way, and she is free too, putting her in C tier. Lynx is a good addition to any team as being a pretty solid healer for the team. Her ultimate cleanses the whole team, making her extremely valuable. She is easily obtainable by completing Pure Fiction Stage 2, which makes her very F2P friendly, which is why I am putting her in B tier. The best scammer in the Honkai style universe, Sampo, is a solid win DOT unit when you are trying to create a DOT team. His ultimate increases damage taken from DOT, which makes him invaluable in DOT teams if you do not have a Black Swan, which is why I am putting him in A tier. The best 4-star in my opinion is Pella. She provides a defense strat on her ultimate that targets all enemies on the field, making her invaluable. She does not need Eidolons to function, and you either slap on the Silver Wolf event like cone on her, or if you're like me and did not play that event, you can just give her the Luca like cone, and she will work wonders, and that is why she's S tier for me. I love Server in the story and she is so badass. However, there are just better lightning DPSs in the game. She is a decent pick for the early game if you need a lightning DPS, but is outclassed by other better DPSs, which puts her in C tier. Addicted to gambling just like us, QQ is a solid quantum DPS for any player. She is a very good DPS for being a 4-star, and her gameplay is super fun too, which puts her in A tier. Her chicken ultimate never fails to crack me up. Su Shang is a lovable character in the story, and her friendship with Gui Naifeng is literally friendship goals. Her ultimate gives her another turn which acts like Seele but weaker. Being a 4-star, her damage is always going to be lower compared to a 5-star, but she is a solid DPS to use in the early game, B tier. Best friend to Su Shang, Gui Naifeng is a fire DOT unit that is also a good F2P option in Acheron teams, which makes her pretty valuable if you have an Acheron or would like to use DOT. Her fire keys acts as a debuff which allows enemies to take more damage, which is why I will put her in B tier. Is she really dead? King Yun might be dead in game, but she is very much alive in the meta. Her ultimate that gives energy is invaluable to units that are ultimate focus, making her good for F2P players, which is why I'll put her in A tier. Himeko works hand in hand with Herta in Pure Fiction. She used to be considered the worst of the standard 5 stars, but I think that position has been given to someone else. If you've lost a 50-50 to her, don't be too sad, as she is pretty good in her niche, which is why I will give her A tier. Welt. Welt's speed reduction makes him a desirable character, as speed is important in a turn-based game. He excels in his niche, which is slowing enemies down. Furthermore, he acts as a sub-DPS, as he can deal significant damage himself. However, due to his niche kit, he does not find as much use compared to other characters. B tier. Since the start of the game, Bronya has been said to be the best of the standard 5 stars, and that holds true to this day. She might have been power crept by Sparkle, but she's a standard 5 star, which makes getting her easier compared to a limited character, so I will put her in A tier. If you're into revenge archetype characters, Clara is the one for you. She's a solid DPS among the standard banner characters, and with investment, she can comfortably clear all endgame content. I would have put her in the S tier if she had not been power crept recently, so A tier. The inferior blonde preservation character, Japat, has seen better days at the start of the game for being a solid sustainer. However, as new characters release, specifically a better blonde, his role as a sustainer has been power crept, which is why I'll put him in B tier. Talking about blondes, Avengerine aka the Better Blonde can create a shield with a flick of his hands, and his character was fleshed out so well in the story, making him a very likable character. Pulling for him will not disappoint you, and he contributes some damage too. S tier. Her emergency revives had saved me so many times in the early game. She also keeps hunting in my pools. Known as none other than the resident lawful healer Bailu. Bailu has seen better days before the release of Lota and definitely Ho Ho. Her lack of cleanse just makes her a worse pick compared to other healers, which is why I'll put her in B tier. Speaking of Lota, he is still a reliable healer to this day. However, with the recent releases of sustain units that provide more than just healing or sustaining, Lota is just not as good as them, as all he does is heal, which is why he is A tier. Among the trio of abundance units, Ho Ho unbeatably provides the most for teams besides just healing. Her ultimate gives an insane attack buff and energy, which is useful for many team archetypes. S tier. The worst standard 5 star you can get unfortunately is Yanting. He has fallen off pretty badly with how he cannot be hit to keep his buffs active. His damage is not worth the investment into him, as there are just better ice DPS compared to him, putting him in C tier. I love her character and design so much. Xingliu is a very capable ice DPS you can have in your account. With enough investment, she is able to beat all endgame modes in Honkai Star Rail. She might not be as good as top meta units right now, but she still is able to hold her own, which is why I'll put her in A tier. The first ever limited character to be released, Seele has seen better days and is still a solid DPS with heavy investment. F2P players are better off pulling for easier to build DPSs, as Seele requires a lot of investment to be competitive in the endgame modes. A tier. The mighty lawful general, Jingyuan, has gotten a lot of minor buffs since the start of the game. His damage is more backloaded as he relies on his lightning lord to get tank stacks to deal insane amount of damage. He is a decent lightning DPS with heavy heavy investment, but is unfortunately overshadowed by other DPSs. B tier. Yukong is a harmony support that requires precise speed tuning to be effective and is pretty awkward to use. Her E6 makes her easier to use, but that is not very easily achievable, especially for F2P players. Her being hard to use compared to other harmony buffers make her less enticing to use. C tier. Introducing a unique mechanic of implanting weaknesses to star rail, Silverwolf still holds strong in today's meta, especially for newer players that do not have a diverse range of DPSs. She is very valuable. Her ultimate also acts as a defense threat for a single enemy, which makes her good in single target scenarios. A tier. Giving you punches for days, Luca is a bleed DOT character that is single target, which makes him not as valuable as other DOT 4 stars. Bleed has one of the highest multiplier, which is why you can see clips of Luca doing insane damage with his ultimate. Unfortunately, due to him being single target, he's restrictive and there are better choices for DOT compared to him. B tier. Man, I have so many fond memories of Blade. Being my first 50-50 win, it's sad to see that he has not really been buffed since the start of the game. He is still a solid win DPS but requires way more investment to be competitive. B tier. A solid driver for DOT. Kafka is still competitive in today's meta. DOT is still waiting for its dedicated support that has yet to come out. Being a driver, Kafka is invaluable if you want to play DOT. S tier. The best partner to Kafka, Black Swan, is an insane win DOT unit and works well even without DOT, as her skill has a small defense threat too. She makes the Kaf Swan team insane, and furthermore, DOT is able to clear all types of endgame modes. S tier. Fu Xuan holds the tank archetype in Honkai Star Rail. Being the only character able to soak up damage for the team, she is a good sustain and gives a crit rate buff which makes her invaluable for a team. A tier. A dedicated follow-up support for all your follow-up attack needs. Popes is invaluable for your follow-up teams and excels in her niche. Definitely a must pull if follow-up is an archetype you like. A tier. Being able to regenerate a skill point and buffing a single ally's attack and speed is Hanya's main selling point. However, she is mostly overshadowed by the 5-star Sparker that is better in every way. If you don't have Sparker, she is a solid harmony support. B tier. Hanya's sister Shui is an insane 4-star DPS, and with enough investment, she is able to do insane amounts of damage. Her ultimate ignores type winners, which is invaluable and makes her a solid DPS to add to your team. A tier. Fighting with Grace, Argenti is a multi-target DPS and excels in multi-target scenarios. His ultimate is able to charge up twice to deal the max damage. He excels in his niche and is overall a good DPS. A tier. The free 5-star given to us, Genshin Could Never, is an insane follow-up attack DPS and is a good starter for all accounts. Dr. Ratio excels in single target scenarios, being a hunt character, and relies on debuffs to activate his follow-up attack. A tier. A universal support for all teams where she excels in break teams. Runmei is a must pull for all accounts and is valuable to all teams due to her high flexibility and versatility. Her buffs are applied to the whole team except herself, which makes her even more overpowered than she already is. S tier. The second of the Harmony trio, Sparker, specializes in hyper carry teams and excels in her niche. She is considered better Bronya for a reason, and Bronya is already insane. Pulling for Harmony units are always going to be better in the long run compared to DPSs, so Sparker is S tier. The Penacony superstar, Robin, specializes in follow-up attack support and is an overall great Harmony unit for any account. Her team-wide advancement on her ultimate allows for even faster clear as the whole team is able to take immediate action again. S tier. Misha is a decent DPS you have no other DPSs to use, but he is outshined by other better DPSs and is just a Mei pick in general. C tier. The best 4-star sustain period. Gallagher is insane even in his base kit as he provides substantial healing while doing good break damage himself. If you are able to get his E2, he becomes even more invaluable as he will be able to cleanse with his skill. A tier. The Rhythm Mei of this universe does not cease to disappoint either, as Acheron is insane as a DPS. She is F2P friendly and easy to build. She is able to do a sufficient amount of damage at low investment to clear all endgame contents. S tier. I never thought I liked cowboys until I saw Boothill. Boothill is so cool in the story and his DPS does not disappoint either. He is a hunt unit focusing on break damage. His single target damage is insane and he does not rely as much on Harmony MC compared to Firefly, which makes him more flexible in that sense. S tier. Talking about Firefly, Firefly is another insane fire break DPS that is better in multi-target scenarios. She is easy to build and does insane damage at minimal investment. Just stack as much break effect you can on her and she is ready to go. S tier. A character literally designed for pure fiction. Jade is invaluable if you want to clear pure fiction with ease. She works well in her niche and excels at it. She is a DPS while also able to support another DPS with a skill. A tier. Let him cook. Jiao Qiu is a niche unit that fulfills his role as a debuffer. He might gain more value if more ultimate focused DPSs were released, but currently he's mainly used for Acheron and excels in it. A tier. The Beta Clara. That's basically it. They made a unit to power creep Clara, and Yunli did not disappoint. She has a taunt with her ultimate and can be used in all endgame content, as she can deal significant single and multi-target damage. S tier. Fei Xiao is an insane wind follow-up DPS. To see her best damage, she does require her optimal supports, being Robin and Topaz. However, she's still a solid DPS in general to pull, especially if you are struggling in MOC or Apocalypse Shadow. S tier. Our newest 4-star Mose is a good substitute for F2P players that did not pull for Topaz, as his follow-up attack buffing capabilities are pretty good as well. A tier. Our latest addition to 2.5, Ling Sha, is a very capable healer and excels in break teams due to her buffing break damage with her ultimate. She is generally a good healer too and is able to sustain any team well. S tier. I hope this video was helpful to you. Do let me know what you guys think of my rankings in the comments down below. At the end of the day, pull for who you like. I believe you can make any character good with enough investment. Thanks for watching. See ya guys!